Hello YouTube friends, welcome to my channel. This is Rai Rai with my husband travel buddy Alan. We're traveling to Granada, Spain. Join us as we explore the famous Alhambra. But first, don't forget to subscribe! From Malaga, we will proceed to our last destination in our itinerary, the Granada, Spain. We will again be traveling via train and it will take 2 hours to reach our destination. While on our way to Granada, I can't stop myself from getting excited. Ever since we watched the Korean series Memories of Alhambra, it inspired me and Alan to go and visit this place. And as expected, Alhambra is located on top of the mountain, so I intentionally booked a hotel up the hill to be near Alhambra. After leaving our luggages in the hotel, we just did some refreshing and then proceeded to Alhambra. Just like in Malaga, we need to walk uphill to reach the place. I know it's another challenge, but I'm sure it's worth it.
Hola, buenas tardes. We're here on top of Alhambra and we're trying to explore the Generalife, which is the garden of the palace. We still can't get into the palace because our schedule is at 3 o'clock. So we're just gonna explore the view here.
With this kind of beautiful surroundings, of course we need to capture it with many pictures. Granada is a city in southern Spain's Andalusia region, in the foothills of Sierra Nevada mountains. It's known for grand examples of medieval architecture, dating to the Moorish occupation, especially the Alhambra. This sprawling hilltop fortress complex encompasses royal palaces, serene patios, and reflecting pools from the Nasrid dynasty, as well as the fountains and orchards of the Generalife gardens. The Generalife was a summer palace and country estate of the Nasrid rulers of the Emirate of Granada in Al-Andalus. It is located directly east of and uphill from the Alhambra Palace complex in Granada, Spain. The most commonly cited etymology for the name Generalife is that it derives from an Arabic word, Jannat al-Arif, which may variously mean garden of the architect, or garden of the artist, or garden of the Gnostic, or even garden of the flautist. Based on the oldest decorations studied in the palace, the Generalife was most likely constructed by Muhammad II at the end of the 13th century, or possibly by Muhammad III at the beginning of the 14th century. Even if he did not begin its construction, Muhammad III at least contributed to some of its early decoration, and he was responsible for adding the Mirador chamber in the palace northern pavilion. Later, Nasrid rulers carried out their own works on it, in turn. According to an inscription, it was remodeled and redecorated soon after by Ismail I in year 1319. Several inscriptions around the entrance to the Salon Regio were composed by Ibn al-Hayab, Ismail's vizier and court poet. There is evidence that Muhammad V ruled in years 1354 to 1359 and 1362 to 1391, who carried out extensive construction inside the Alhambra, also carried out works in Generalife Garden. Lastly, Yusuf III, who ruled in years 1408 to 1417, remodeled the southern sections of the palace in the 15th century. The Generalife is one of the oldest surviving Moorish gardens. However, the present-day gardens today date from various changes and creations made since the 16th century, after the beginning of Spanish Christian rule in Granada and up the 20th century. The present-day look of the gardens, in particular, the Jardín Nuevos, is in large part due to Leopoldo Torres Balvas and Francisco Prieto Moreno, who rearranged much of it between years 1931 and 1951 and imparted Italian influences on their design. In year 1958, a major fire destroyed or damaged much of the northern sections of the Generalife. However, the damage from the fire and the subsequent repairs that were undertaken also allowed for significant excavations to document the original form of the gardens. In the Patio de la Acequia, archaeologists discovered the original Nasrid era paved paths and managed to identify the original soil of the Moorish gardens, buried under 70 centimeters of newer layers, as well as outlet holes along the sides of the central canal, which enabled the gardens to be watered and irrigated. After the excavations, however, this original layer of paths and gardens was covered up again by half a meter of new material. The outlet holes were sealed and the modern gardens were replanted with flora that had no botanical relation to the original Moorish gardens. The overall layout and division of the space, however, still preserved the original arrangement. More recent restoration of the gardens were more closely based on an analysis of the garden's original flora. Since year 1984, the Generalife has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site, along with the Alhambra. The Generalife today includes a mix of original Nasrid period elements as well as extensive modern elements, especially in the appearance of the gardens. The walkways are paved in traditional Granadian style with a mosaic of pebbles, white ones from the River Darro and black ones from the River Genil. The Generalife Gardens occupy 3 large terraces on the hillside, each measuring about 35 meters wide by 250 meters long. The 2 lower terraces on the southwest side are occupied by market gardens and orchards. Known today as Las Huertas, these gardens have served this purpose since the 14th century. The highest terrace is occupied by the Jardín Nuevos, a series of 20th century gardens that form the main approach to the historic palace today. The southern part of this garden area was designed by Francisco Prieto Moreno and finished in 1951. It includes walls formed by trimmed cypress trees and a large cruciform pool inspired by Islamic Moorish gardens, along with the other decorative plants. An open-air theater was also added here in 1952. The northern part of the gardens, which features a rose-bush labyrinth, was designed by Leopoldo Torres Balbas in year 1931. Located inside the vicinity of the Alhambra, which is one of the world's great architectural wonders, is the stately yet charming Parador de Granada. It's the only luxury hotel that will give you a magical experience. You will feel as if you have somehow stepped back several years ago to a time of Moorish sultans and great kings and queens of Spain. But I guess this is the back part of the Parador, and there is no access to go inside. Just looking at these old historical designs, you can visualize how good the ancient architects were back in the days. The details are amazing. Just like this one. The Alhambra, which means the Red One, is a palace and fortress complex located in Granada, Andalusia, Spain. It is one of the most famous monuments of Islamic architecture and one of the best preserved palaces of the historic Islamic world, in addition to containing notable examples of Spanish Renaissance architecture. During the Nasrid era, the Alhambra was a self-contained city, separate from the rest of Granada below. It contained most of the amenities of a Muslim city, such as the Friday Mosque, hammams or public baths, roads, houses, artisan workshops, and a tannery and a sophisticated water supply system. As a royal city and citadel, it contained at least 6 major palaces, most of them located along the northern edge, where they commanded views over the Albayzin Quarter. The complex was begun in year 1238 by Muhammad I Ibn al-Ammar, the first Nasrid emir and founder of the Emirate of Granada, the last Muslim state of Al-Andalus. It was built on the Sabica Hill, an outcrop of Sierra Nevada, which had been the site of the earlier fortresses and of the 11th century palace of Samuel ibn Nagrila. Later, Nasrid rulers continuously modified the site. The most significant construction campaigns, which gave the royal palaces much of their definitive character, took place in the 14th century during the reigns of Yusuf I and Muhammad V. After the conclusion of the Christian Reconquista in year 1492, the site became the royal court of Ferdinand and Isabella, where Christopher Columbus received the royal endorsement for his expedition, and the palaces were partially altered. The architecture of the Nasrid palaces reflects the tradition of Moorish architecture, developed over previous centuries. It is characterized by the use of the courtyard as a central space and basic unit around which other halls and rooms were organized. Courtyards typically had water features at their center, such as a reflective pool or a fountain. decoration was focused on the inside of the building and was executed primarily with tile mosaic on lower walls and carved stucco on the upper walls. Geometric patterns, vegetal motifs, and Arabic inscriptions were the main types of decorative motifs. Additionally, stalactite-like sculpting known as muqarnas was used for three-dimensional features like vaulted ceilings. In year 1526, Charles V of Spain commissioned a new Renaissance-style palace in direct juxtaposition with the Nasrid palaces, but it was left uncompleted in the early 17th century. After being allowed to fall into disrepair for centuries, with its buildings occupied by squatters, the Alhambra was rediscovered following the defeat of Napoleon I, whose troops destroyed parts of the site. The rediscoverers were first British intellectuals and then other American and Northern European Romantic travelers. The most influential of them was Washington Irving, whose Tales of Alhambra in the year 1832 brought international attention to the site. The Alhambra was one of the first Islamic monuments to become the object of modern scientific study and has been the subject of numerous restorations since the 19th century. It is now one of Spain's major tourist attractions and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Court of the Lions or Patio de los Leones, the innermost and most private courtyard of the Nasrid Palace, was reserved for the ruler and his harem. This is the most feminine in its intimacy, beauty, delicacy, and proportion. It is the most romantic part of a much romanticized palace complex. During the Nasrid dynasty, the Court of the Lions formed a separate unit and was united to the Court of the Myrtles by a corridor only during the reign of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. From the corridor, you pass through a modest side door to a small hall of the Mozarab, which then opens into the rectangular Court of the Lions with its adjoining side rooms and upper galleries. In the center of the courtyard, water sparkles from a fountain basin to fall through the mouth of the 12 stylish lions into 4 streams that run toward the colonnaded sides. The hall is covered by one of the most remarkable muqarnas domes in Islamic art. The muqarnas composition consists of at least 5,000 prismatic pieces, unfolding from the central summit into 16 miniature domes right above the level of the windows. As I told you earlier in this video, what inspired us to see this beautiful place is the 2018 South Korean television series, Memories of the Alhambra, which was filmed and is based in Granada, Spain, with the Alhambra Palace as the backdrop of an AR game within the series. Many features and stories of the palace were used as clues and characters for the game progression, and AR Alhambra was depicted as a place of magic and Mecca for gamers to establish the gaming plot in the story.
Hola, buenas tardes. Finally, we were able to make it to our room here in Hotel Casa Morisca in Granada, Spain. It's just near Alhambra, but we cannot see the view of the Alhambra Palace here because our room is on the side of the building. This hotel is sort of like the interiors is different from the other hotels that we had. It's I think it's follow the theme of Alhambra. So the bedroom itself is spacious, good for 2 people. We have chairs, we have small table here, we have a full-size neck mirror here, And the bathroom is here. Okay, Alan is still figuring out how to.
Oh, there you
There you
go.
go.
Oh, it
So-
should be like that.
This is the bathroom. So the way I see it, it's sort of like this is a lounge. Look at the ceiling. So we're just gonna stay here for one day and one night, and tomorrow we're gonna move to another hotel in the city. Okay? Thank you.
This is Casa Morisca Hotel, which is located near Alhambra, about 16 minutes walk. If you are looking for a hotel to see Alhambra and feel the historic ambience of Granada, this is highly recommended. We're hungry and about to go out for dinner, and we found this bar La Fuente, only a few minutes walk from our hotel. As expected, the food is spectacularly delicious, plus they gave us free dish. Aren't we lucky? After dinner, we walk back to the hotel. You'll see the romantic and serene view of Alhambra on top of the mountain, and its beauty reflects on the light. This will end our adventure here in Alhambra, but not in Granada. Watch out for the next video as we continue to explore the city of Granada. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit on that notification bell for more updates. Again, gracias, adios, bye-bye!